said, what the written authors wrote. We're trying to figure out, did Jesus really say this and that kind of stuff. But in the end, we can only do what we can do today. So we don't necessarily have to put a lot of concern, worry, anxiety on what all those other people are doing that got it wrong. We need to look at, what do I need to do to get it right? What do I need to do to live life the right way? And so when I tell you the story about the funeral and then what Bill said, Bill Bangor is somebody we respect quite a bit. We've seen him speak at our conferences and listen to his podcasts and listen to his books. He's saying that maybe we need to regard the body and blood a little more carefully, cautiously, like Jesus said. Be introspective, think about this. So maybe I focus on what that means. What did Jesus mean when he invited us in to his closest place? And so today I'm going to talk about his passage in Matthew 11, where he says, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden." This is King James. We're not going to read King James today, but that's the language that's in my mind from being a child. If you're burdened, if you're wearisome, if you have anxiety, then Jesus says, "Come and take." He says, "You give me your burdens, and you take my burden. Because my burden is light. It's easy." So when you think my burden is easy, what does that mean exactly? Because all of us are sitting here and we're thinking about life that happens after church today, where we're going, what we're doing, what problems we have to deal with, what things are waiting for us at work, what things, relationships in the family, and all the things, our responsibilities to the world. We're thinking about all that stuff. So what does it mean when Jesus says it is take my burden because it's light? So I'm going to start, before we jump back into that scripture, Matthew 11, I want to start with a verse in Proverbs. I will say that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how big your family is, what school you went to, how great of a cook you are, how great of a basketball player you are. All of us go through challenging times where we don't feel like we have the answers.
Right.
And many of us will go through a season where we have a spirit of lack. I'm cautious to use the word poverty because sometimes we think of poverty as something out there somewhere, that's some other condition that I don't live with. But if we have a spirit of lack, assuming we're going to have a hard time meeting our needs, it's poverty. That's a spirit of poverty. It's a spirit of lack that sets on us sometimes, or resentment, or depression. And sometimes we can feel like life is stacked against us. And so we're like, I need answers because I kind of feel the bottom of my rope, or I don't know how to see out of this hole that I'm in. Proverbs 18:1 says, I guess I'll read it from the message up there. "Loners who care only for themselves spit on the common good." Verse 2 says, "Fools care nothing for thoughtful discourse. All they do is run off with the match." The New American Standard says, "The fool does not delight in understanding, but in revealing his own mind." So here's where I'm going to go today, and I'll finish stay here the rest of the time we're here. Maybe you don't have all the answers in yourself.
Sure.
Maybe if you're looking to yourself for getting yourself out of the problem that you're in, maybe you're not looking far enough. And I think that's what Jesus was saying in Matthew 11. Proverbs 18:10, I'll read one more, and then we'll jump to Matthew 11. "God's name is a place of protection. Good people can run there and be safe. The rich think their wealth protects them. They imagine themselves safe behind it." Now, if you've been on the earth for a while, you have seen people like Madonna, or seen people like famous basketball players, NFL players, that have everything. I mean, they look like they have everything. They have everything they ever dreamed of when they were a little kid, and their life is miserable. They commit suicide. They feel like they're 40 years old, and they have no idea what their purpose in the world is, because they're already broke from playing football. But you think you're making millions of dollars after 10 years or so, you'd be set. You have everything. What else could you possibly want, right? But there was something that they were searching for they never found. And all of it, the reason I say that is because In Matthew 11:25, at that time Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and intelligent and have revealed them to infants. Yes, Father, for this way was well-pleasing in your sight. Now, this is shortly after he's talked with John the Baptist's disciples and explained to them why he's here on the earth. He says, all things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, nor does anyone know the Father except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son determines to reveal him. He's talking about who's going to get this message that Jesus is preaching. And it's still early in his ministry. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is comfortable, my burden is light.
Right.
Comfortable and light. That sounds like a pretty good burden to carry. All right, so let me tell you 3 ways that we've interpreted this over the years. And the first 2 are pretty basic, pretty normal. Mike Bradshaw, welcome to New Song Church. And the whole family. We didn't expect it this quick, man. All right, praise God. So, when we think about take of my yoke, I'll give you rest. We can compare this to just a basic resting from stress and busyness. There is a sweet spot between working hard and finding the path of least resistance. Right? In normal life, it's just like in my mind, I think if you owned a business, we were just talking about somebody doing concrete work before church. If I owned a business and I'm working 70 hours a week as a person who's trying to get the job and make the quotes and show up on time and get the work done and fix the equipment and make sure that I have materials that I need for the work, all the things, it's a lot of stress. But when I'm working 70 hours a week, it's probably about time to hire somebody to help me, right? And then, but you have to find that balance. As soon as you start hiring people, now you have a human resources management challenge, and you got to find the right people, and people want to make money when they work for you, so you got to pay them enough. But now you're sharing your profit with the employees, and you got to eventually, as you grow your business, you got to find that balance of, how much work and how much play. How much do I share? How much do I invest in my employees when I know they're going to leave as soon as they find something else? It's all a balancing act. Well, in our lives, when it comes to work and stress, it's a balancing act. You could be, let's just say, lazy, sit around, and have no stress, but you're going to have a hard time eating. Probably.
Come on.
It's not stressful to sit around. Or you can work yourself, your fingers to the bone and never have any time to enjoy it. Right. And just live in stress and live and be burdened all the time. Or have so much money you don't even have time to actually use it.
Right.
Whatever. I mean, there's lots of ways you can do this. But the challenge with just stopping there and thinking that that's what Jesus was saying is that the rest of the world knows how to figure that out. Like there's nothing unique about Jesus that helps us figure out how to get through stress and busyness. Like that's every person in the world has to figure out how to do that. I put myself to my 3rd page. You guys almost got up there really quick. So when I was 21, I was working for Morgan's Foods. And when I first got home from my adventures in Wisconsin, I worked for Morgan's Foods for a temp agency for a little while, and I was blanching vegetables and making soup. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed all kinds of work out there. It was fun. I'm learning things. But then I started working for the DNR, which is where I thought I was really going to land. I thought I'm going to stick it. And I realized after making $8.65 for about a year, $8.65 an hour for about a year, I thought, this is not really going to go anywhere really fast. I could be a park ranger or work for auto recreation or go canoe in the river, but it's not going to pay a lot of money. So if I want to have a family, I didn't have a family at the time yet, that's when I started working construction. So, like I said, construction has opportunities. But there was a time when I was that age, I had no idea what to expect life was going to look like when I was 40 or 50 years old. I had an idea of what I'd like it to look like, but I really didn't think that I would get there. I didn't see what was going to connect the dots between where I'm at right now, 21 years old, and what I'm going to do when I'm 45 or 50. And if we all had a magic ball, then we never have any problems, right? We just look at it, crystal ball. We know exactly what it's going to be. We just do all the right steps, and everything works out perfectly. But we don't have that. We do have the Holy Spirit, and we do have good advisors, which is what I'm going to talk about. So we figure these things out. We listen to the Holy Spirit. We have people who speak into our lives that tell us things that we need to hear. Sometimes people that we don't agree with, but they're telling us truth, and we figure out, we make choices every day. When I was trying to figure out if Jennifer and I were going to be a forever thing, I was talking with Sue Cox, and she would tell me stories of how much she loved Tom. Stories all the time. And just listening to her stories made me think, well, this is kind of how I feel about her. So if it worked for them, then I think this is going to be a go. It wasn't the Holy Spirit telling me to get married this woman. I can say it's the Holy Spirit, but I wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. It was someone who I was listening to that had been there, done that. And they had shared their experiences with me that I trusted. And that's what helped me to say, hey, it's time to propose to this woman. So when it comes to managing stress, busyness, that kind of thing, finding out that cycle in life, you're taking chances, but ideally you're listening to people that have wisdom and hopefully godly wisdom that comes from the Scripture, that comes from experiences where they've lived before. But just managing stress and busyness is not necessarily the answer to all of our problems. If we think about it in a religious sense, we can say things like, surrender your problems to the Lord, lay it at the foot of the cross. These are religious things we say, right? But how do you really do that? It sounds good. It sounds good and religious, great answer. And you can see how Jesus told us, come, give me your burdens, and I'll give you rest. But how does that look in reality? Matthew 6 has a long passage about take no thought for your life. God clothes the lilies of the fields. He feeds the birds. They're not worried. When the sparrow wakes up in the morning, he's not worried about what he's going to eat today. He just goes out and gets it. We just watched at our house yesterday. There's been a nest of little birds. I don't know if it's a wren or just some small little bird living in our garage. We didn't invite them there, but they came. And we thought there was 2 or 3 babies. Well, yesterday we discovered there were 4 babies because they all started coming out of the nest and jumping and pooping all over the garage.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but because we had the garage door open all day, we were out mowing grass and weed eating and doing all the things, getting ready for a 15-year-old birthday party. And these birds finally got out of the garage and they started flying up to the little trees and I thought they were gone, but before we closed the garage door for the night, we noticed they all came back into the garage. So one of them was back in the nest and the other ones were, I don't know, a lawnmower or something else. They just chirped all day long. But they're not worried. They're not worried about anything. We go look at them and they're not worried about us either. Mom was always taking care of them. There was always a bird coming in and giving them worms and stuff. And then I guess they went out to learn how to do it themselves. It was pretty neat to watch. But we don't have to take care, or we don't have to worry about how we're going to be provided for. God will take care of us. And with that said, I already said that about balance. We don't get to just sit in the garage in the nest like these 4 birds did. They had to go out, and mom and dad, because you can see the mom and dad were around them watching the whole time. They had to go out and figure out how to get their own worms. Right? They have to figure out how to do this. In 1 Peter 5, verse 6, Peter says, therefore humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at the proper time, having cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares about you. Anxiety is a word we hear a lot today, right? But this thing that says, humble yourselves under the mighty hand of God, so that he may exalt you at the proper time. That's not just, again, sitting in the nest, just chilling and waiting for God to do his thing. It's you doing what you believe is faithful and obedient and prudent. And then at the time that God determines, he'll use your work, your effort, the things that you're doing out of obedience, out of faith, and he'll use them to maybe help you see something that you didn't know you could do by yourself. So having your anxiety cast on him, you're not responsible for the end result. You're responsible to be faithful in everyday life. So one of the things I was going to mention earlier, when Debbie was talking about how we supported the refuge, the house, I'm trying to think of the name. Is it called the house? Is it house? I want to say House Refuge, because I think it's the church up here. Yeah, the house that's in Austin, it's called the Refuge. But we gave $1,000 at one point to help get that thing off the ground started. We're one of many people that contributed to this. We're not carrying the weight by ourselves. And then we agreed to do that every year. So that's going to take a consistent effort. It's going to be us talking about it here, when we're doing announcements, but also during the week we may talk about it. Hey, this is what's going on at the refuge here. Hey, this is what happened. I heard they've got some new staff, or Tina said they're hiring. This is going to take effort long term. It's part of our lives. It's going to be part of our lives if we want to support it. Just writing a check one time and then walking away from it is a different kind of support. And sometimes people can do that, and it meets a big need. But this kind of effort, these kids that are making transition from a home to a foster home, that's not going away anytime soon. Like, it's not going to be eliminated anytime soon. So we're doing the things we think is faithful, and there's at some point we're going to see breakthroughs. We're going to see miracles. We're going to see people's lives. Like 20 years later, 10 years later, you're seeing a kid that has a successful start in life, and they look back to that time when they went to that refuge, and it was because somebody took time to talk to them, or to spend time understanding the situation, or just praying with them, or feeding them, whatever. And they're going to say, it's because that person cared that I'm where I'm at today at 22 or 27 or whatever. But it takes that faithful contribution, and then God adds to it. God honors it. God takes the heavy burden. He's got that. We have kind of a light thing. We just give some money. It's not hard to give money, right? And pray. We pray. I mean, Debbie's very good about praying for these things. Maybe visiting or volunteering, helping work. So I just want to make sure that as we think about the picking up our burdens, whether it's stress and busyness of life, the first way we could look at this, or if it's maybe the religious, give your burdens, lay at the foot of the cross, that kind of thing. I want to look just a little bit deeper and look at the context of what Jesus was saying in Matthew 11. All right. None of this giving up or casting our burdens on Jesus is meant to ignore reality. It's not meant to disregard circumstances. We can't just stick our head in the sand and just hope everything goes away. That's not what Jesus is saying. And we have five senses. We can touch things, we can taste things, we can smell things, we can hear things, and we can see things. God gave us those for a reason. There are a very small percentage of people that don't have all those senses. People can't use all those faculties. But for the average person, we have five senses to be able to understand the way the world works. We have five senses to be able to see and hear the beauty of a beautiful voice, see a sunrise, a sunset, experience a hug.
Right.
Like, these are things that God gave us these abilities for. So our senses and emotions are necessary to understand circumstances, so we know what to do. We can make judgments. We can speak words of life. We can know when there's a fear. When a tornado is coming through our town, we can speak against it, but we may be speaking against it while we sit in the bathtub or go to the basement. Because there's a little bit of fear there. Hey, I've seen what tornadoes can do, and those people are Christians, and those people are Christians, and that town has Christians in it, so I don't know, I can just assume that because I'm a Christian that I don't have to go through a tornado. So there's fear for a reason. It's to prepare you, right? It's to get you ready for something. And it's God who delivers us even if the tornado does hit. So, rack up debt. This is an example because it's easy to rack up debt. Credit cards, medical bills, student loans, a mortgage. Sometimes a mortgage that's way too expensive for what we're able to support. It happens all the time. It happened. There was a big problem in 2008 when people were financing out the wazoo beyond what they could actually afford with their paycheck. And then you get depressed because you realize that there's no way out of this debt. Your credit card, you can't even hardly make a minimum credit card payment or whatever. Well, it was choices and philosophies and mindsets and understanding the way the world works that led you up to that point, right? You thought the world worked a certain way, and you thought that you were going to be victorious by doing things the way you were doing them. And now you realize, they didn't work. So one of the ways that we can look at this, giving our burdens to the Lord, that Jesus is talking about, is maybe we stop and say, my thinking got me here.
Yeah.
What other thinking do I need to consider so that I can stop, figure out a plan to get out of this mess, and move on with a different way of thinking so that I don't come back here again? Right? It's the same thing when, if my cousins and siblings have been struggling with a huge thing, but I can't hold, Jesus wouldn't hold that against you forever. He wouldn't just hold that and just stand firm ground and not forgive and not let you move on. So maybe I need to be the first one to let go of these things. I think that those are some of the things that Jesus taught. So let me go back to the chapter of Matthew 11. The deeper meaning that I think we can get out of this message in Matthew 11 is I think we need to open our ears to listen to something that's beyond what I can do. If I'm just trying to manage stress and busyness, or if I'm just trying to lay my emotional burdens or my mental burdens at the foot of the cross, I'm kind of focused on me, right? I'm kind of focused on, I want to get out of the situation. But maybe we need to think about our lives. I mentioned that Bill Vanderbush spoke in the message I listened to this week about the Catholic Church, about presenting the body and blood. Maybe a little more reverent than what we treat it sometimes. But when I think back to that funeral service I went to in that Catholic Church, I thought, there are people that have been doing this kind of service for over 1,000 years. And they take great comfort in doing this order of service. Everything happens the same way. The kind of the robes, the garments, the phrases, the language may have changed, but the ornamental, the stage and everything has a special name in the Catholic Church. We don't call it that in our church. But there's people that follow that faith, and some of them are still pretty devout. I have friends that are strong Catholics and strong Christians. They love Jesus.
That's right.
Right? And there's some people that don't. Well, that happens in pretty much every other church too. There's people that are devout and serious about serving the way they believe is right. So in my mind, maybe I need to be aware that there's other ways to see the world than just in the beginning of John chapter 11, John the Baptist's disciples, they questioned Jesus about being the one. Are you the one that's sent here? Early in Matthew 11, very beginning. And he tells John, I'm going to read it here. He says, Jesus answered them and said to them, go and report to John what you hear and see. The blind receive sight, and the lame walk. The lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear. The dead are raised, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. Blessed is he who does not take offense at me. So later, you have heard this before. If you hear, it's actually in this, later in this, let me see, I thought it was. He says that wisdom is beget of her children. There it is, in verse 19. He says, wisdom is vindicated by her deeds. So Jesus is telling John's disciples, go back and tell them what you've seen and heard. And one of the things he's seen is that the good news is preached to the poor. So what are the poor? The poor are people that don't have means to have a great life just because of their situation and their position. In that society, it was not as easy to have a middle class. It was not as easy for someone to just work hard and make their way to up the ladder. It just wasn't the same. So for the good news, hope, to be preached to the poor was a miracle. Because now Jesus is saying the same truth to the king, to to the person that was in the middle class somewhere, that was nobility somehow or whatever, had the right blood, to the person that had leprosy or the person that had nothing, no money. And even said when that woman carried her 2 mites, in the temple and put them in the bucket, they probably had a basket like this. Yeah. Put it in the bucket. He said that woman's given more than anybody. So now we're all kind of on a level playing field. That's why this was so miraculous. And so he knew that when his disciples went back to John the Baptist and said, hey, Jesus said, look at what he's done. John the Baptist was going to be like, well, duh, I should have seen that for myself. Like, okay, you answered the question. You are the one. You are the one that we've been waiting for because you're doing the things that we've been hoping to see. Even though it didn't look maybe how we thought it was going to happen, you're doing the things. So one of the interpretations that I saw when it talks about wisdom is vindicated by our children, doing leprosy cleansed, healing, preaching to the poor. One person said this is where we get the phrase the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We say the proof is in the pudding, right? But that comes from if you make good pudding, people know it, and when they eat it, they know the goods are there. They know that the cook knew what he or she was doing, and this is good stuff. Right? It's this. He's saying that about himself, but he's saying, I'm not going to tell you I'm the Messiah right now. Not right in a second. I'm going to say, look at my needs, and see if that tells you the answer. All right. So that's when he gets into in verse 20. He talks about Chorazin, Bethsaida, and he talks to Capernaum, and he says, woe to you, cities. He's talking to cities. And I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh, he's not talking to individual people, he's talking to cities. He says, you guys have seen the works of God. You've seen these miracles. You've seen the good news is preached to the poor, and you've chosen not to repent. As a city, as a community, you've chosen not to repent. He says, woe to you. It's going to be worse for you in the day of judgment than Tyre and Sidon. It's going to be worse for you in the day of judgment than Sodom. Where bad things, and when Jews associated Sodom with really ugly, bad, nasty things. And he's saying, because you've now seen the truth, and you chose to refuse it, the day is coming, it's going to be worse for you than it was for Sodom. And so, people probably got a little shook by that. And it's not, I don't think this is about Jesus, like, breathing fire and brimstone. He's saying, this is the matter of life and death. The choices you make today are a matter of life or death. And then he says, when he says in Matthew 11:27, I'm reading this from the Message this time, just for a little different perspective. Jesus resumed talking to the people, but now tenderly. The Father has given me all these things to do and say. This is a unique father-son operation, coming out of father and son intimacies and knowledge. No one knows the Son the way the Father does, nor the Father the way the Son does. But I'm not keeping it to myself. We're talking intimacy here, that Jesus had with the Father. I'm not keeping it to myself. I'm ready to go over it line by line with anyone who's willing to listen. Anyone. All right, now the King James says, come learn of me. He says in verse 28, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I have to pause there and say, this man, Eugene Peterson, who translated the Message, he wrote that in like 1993, published it in 1993. He probably worked on it for 10 years up to that point. But that if you've heard that phrase, unforced rhythms of grace, it came from the 1993 translation of the Bible. It's a paraphrase, of course. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. So this is where I think the key is. I think the key is I'm ready to go over it line by line with anyone who Facebook or whatever the thing is that we do, and then we go about our day, whatever our day is. Yes.
If you don't have any ideas, your wife got plenty of them.
Right. That's right. Yep. And then you do the thing that you do during the day, whatever that is, and then you have plans to eat and your evening events, running children or grandchildren places, and some kind of maybe watching your own show on TV or on the computer or whatever, and at some point you go to bed, and then whatever other things happen in between, and then even at work or at church or at whatever club meeting or sports event you go to, whatever it is, there's a routine. You know, we sing the national anthem at the beginning of a lot of sporting events. That's a tradition. We just do it, right? We just say, hey, we're regarding something that's bigger than us playing here on the field. It kind of unites us, right? These two teams, both of them want to win. Both of them are praying to God and let me perform our best so we can win today. You know, we want this to win this game, but we can unite under a flag that says we have a greater freedom that's bigger than this game. You know, whatever. We have our routines, and some of us keep them better than others because of our own disciplines. Is it actually giving me the results in life that I want, that I believe in, that I believe are true? Because how many of you know that your values affect everything about you? Right? So at some point, when you're in a mess, or when you're not in a mess, or when life is just going way too fast and busy, and you don't feel like you can get out of the hole, maybe we need to look at how am I letting the inputs come in? How am I letting my thoughts be shaped and framed? Who am I listening to? Is my wife controlling my life? I'm joking. Am I listening to the news too much? Am I maybe doing something out of pain from when I was a child that I still let run my life today? Whatever the thing is, we can let other things affect our routines, right? That really probably shouldn't affect our routines. So when we want to learn from Jesus, going line by line over the things that Jesus wants to teach us, a little bit of a challenge, and I think this is a really important understanding when we read the Bible. Jesus was talking to real people when he said this. Jesus was not speaking hoping that Debbie Raleigh hears it someday. That's not. He was actually talking to the people in front of his face. He says, "Come, learn." If you watch this, we've been watching The Chosen, that show that it's on Netflix right now, that just kind of walks through Jesus' life. The guy that created the show, Dallas Jenkins, is the son of Larry Jenkins, who did the Left Behind series, very dramatic, very big show, a lot of viewers, a lot of people reading the books, that kind of stuff. And he has the same kind of heart for, I want to show what this looked like. When Jesus walked on the earth, he takes a lot of poetic license, some of the things that aren't specifically in the Bible, he throws in the show because he's trying to help you understand who Mary Magdalene was, whatever. But when Jesus was talking to these people, he's talking to people that are actually listening to his voice. And when he says these things, it means something to them. It's communication, right? Jesus didn't just say these cool scriptural things that just nobody understood, because he would have had a following if that was the case. He was saying things that made sense to the people around him. So for me, when I think of what Jesus is saying, I think it's maybe a little off base to think that I'm just going to go sit in my closet and Jesus is going to tell me all these things. I need to hear this another way. Jesus is not standing here walking around me like he did in the scripture. I need to hear this by some decent teaching and people that have been there and done that, the prophetic voices that are in my life, the wise grandpas that have lived it and I've watched them walk through it and do the things that Jesus has taught us. That's how we learn these things. We're not, now, some of you guys, somebody out there in this group that's here today, you may have that relationship with Jesus where you just sit in the closet or sit on the back porch and Jesus just tells you how to do everything. And maybe you don't have any anxieties and stresses. But I think what's important is that we are willing to learn. When Jesus said it, he said, I'm willing to teach anybody. If you're willing to listen. So that's my encouragement to you today, is that if you're challenged with stresses, anxieties, burdens, unforgiveness, depression, there is hope because Jesus paid a price so that I could have life. Abundant life. Jesus said, I came so you have abundant life. And what I'm feeling right now is not abundant life. So who do I need to talk to? What do I need to listen to help me understand abundant life? And that is a lot of things to a lot of people. And the reason I think it's precious is because it's not about how much you make or what status you have. You know, I listen to, I have a good friend named Scott who is going to be, or who is now in a position of being the state chaplain, so he's going to get promoted from lieutenant colonel to a colonel. And I've been friends with him since about 2010 or so. And our hearts are just knit. We just love being around each other and have a good time. And he was talking to me about ministry. He's a full-time pastor in Columbus, Ohio, or Dayton, in the area surrounding Dayton. And he says, I'll tell you this. He says, it doesn't matter how deep you get in the ministry, you never have enough time, ever, to do all the things that you want to do. There's always somebody to go visit. There's always something to study. There's somebody that needs charity work. There's always stuff. He says, you just have to find your own rhythm of what you believe is right and make your own boundaries for when it's okay, when I go to the hospital, and when I go to this thing, and when I stay long at this event, and when I don't even show up to this event, and all these things. But he's saying it doesn't end. Your challenges don't ever end. You just got to take the right tools to help get through them, the right people, the right relationships, the right truth, and maybe something that was true 20 years ago to you is not going to help you today. Maybe you need to look for that new thing that's going to help you today to navigate the things today that aren't the same as they were 20 years ago. So anyway, I hope that encourages you. I think Jesus said something extremely deep and meaningful that day. It was not just about energy stress. You can go ahead. Does anybody have